Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever felt completely, swamped by information, especially in a field like IT service management? It's just so detailed.
Oh, absolutely.
You need to get the fundamentals, but just cutting through all that noise to figure out what's really important, what you can actually use, that feels like a huge task in itself.
It really is a challenge.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating about the sources we're looking at today is how they kind of bring us back to these core ideas that are, well, incredibly simple, but also really powerful.
Like a compass.
Exactly, like a compass in that information storm.
Right. And that's pretty much our mission here. We're doing a deep dive into this stack of material a listener sent over, all focused on ITIL-4. Specifically, two really foundational pieces. The concept of value, which is just core, and then the 7 guiding principles.
Yeah, the principles that are meant to, steer everything you do.
And these aren't just like abstract theories, are they?
No, not at all. They're designed to be practical tools. So our goal today is really to pull out the most important insights, define those key terms clearly, and show you how these concepts can actually be applied.
To make you more informed, more effective.
Precisely. And help you deliver better results in the end.
Okay, let's jump right in then. The absolute foundation, the bedrock of ITIL-4, seems to be this idea of value.
Yes. It really shifts the focus. The aim is ensuring everything we do in IT ultimately leads to worthwhile outcomes for customers and, well, other stakeholders too.
And one of the first big insights, I think, from the sources is that value isn't something IT just pushes out.
Exactly. It's not a one-way delivery.
Yeah.
The sources really emphasize that value is actively co-created.
Co-created? Okay, so it's a partnership, a two-way street.
Absolutely. Think about it. The provider brings the service, the capabilities, the tech, the expertise, right?
Right.
But the consumer, the user, they have to actually use the service effectively. They need to provide feedback. Maybe they integrate it into their own work.
So value emerges from that interaction.
It emerges from that combined effort, that relationship.
And the sources are pretty clear. Ultimately, only the consumer can say if value was actually realized.
Yes, that's crucial. It's based entirely on whether their needs, their expectations were met by using the service.
Which brings us to the definition ITIL-4 uses for value itself. It's the perceived benefits, usefulness, and importance of something.
And that word perceived is doing a lot of work there.
It really is. It means value is always determined from the viewpoint of the stakeholder. Could be the customer, the end user, maybe even someone in finance or compliance.
And different stakeholders might value different things, right? One might care most about features, another about cost, another about security.
And what they value isn't static either. It can change based on the context or over time.
Which means really talking to your stakeholders, engaging with them, isn't just a good idea. It's fundamental. You have to understand what they actually see as valuable. And it's an ongoing conversation.
Okay, so the sources also define a service in this context. It's a means of enabling value co-creation by facilitating outcomes that customers want to achieve.
Without the customer having to manage specific costs and risks. See how that ties everything together.
Yeah, value co-creation, outcomes. The service is the vehicle helping the customer get somewhere while the provider handles the underlying complexity.
Exactly. The technical stuff, the risks.
And for a service to actually enable that value, it needs 2 key components. These are pretty famous in ITIL: utility and warranty.
Right. Utility is often explained as what the service does. It's the functionality. Does it fit a need? Does it help the user do something or remove a constraint? It's about fitness for purpose.
Like an app having the right features or email letting you send and receive messages.
Perfect examples. And then there's warranty. That's how the service performs.
Yeah.
This is the assurance side of things. Does it meet the agreed requirements? Is it reliable, secure, available?
So fitness for use. Can I actually rely on it when I need it? Does it have enough capacity? Is my data safe?
Exactly. The sources give us that simple formula: utility plus warranty, value.
Right. And the email example is classic.
Yeah, web-based email. The utility is, sending, receiving, organizing emails.
The warranty is knowing it's up 24/7, it's fast enough, my emails are secure.
If it has amazing features, great utility, but it's always down or gets hacked, terrible warranty. Are you getting value?
Nope.
Useless. And the reverse is true too. Rock solid, reliable, never goes down, but maybe it can't handle attachments or something lacks utility. Also not much value.
So you absolutely need both. They have to work together.
And it brings us back to co-creation. The provider brings the utility and warranty, but the consumer brings their effective use, their feedback, their integration. That's how the outcome, the value, actually happens.
That distinction, function versus performance, utility versus warranty, it seems really critical. You can pour money into features, but if it's not reliable.
You undermine the whole thing.
Yeah.
Both are vital.
Okay, so we've got this core idea. Value is co-created, needs utility and warranty, and it's all about the stakeholder's perspective. That's our North Star. But how do you actually steer by that star day to day, or when you're trying to improve things?
Well, that's exactly where the ITIL-4 guiding principles come into play. The sources describe them as universal, enduring recommendations. They're meant to guide you in all circumstances, regardless of changes in goals, strategies, type of work, or management structure.
Wow, okay. That sounds incredibly useful, like a set of reliable guidelines no matter what project or problem you're facing.
They really help you take ITIL guidance, or frankly any good service management practice, and adopt and adapt it sensibly for your situation. They promote sound decision-making, continual improvement.
But yeah, there's 7 of them.
7 key principles. Let's list them quickly. Focus on value.
Start where you are.
Progress iteratively with feedback.
Collaborate and promote visibility.
Think and work holistically.
Keep it simple and practical.
And finally, optimize and automate.
Now, the sources really stress something important here. These aren't meant to be used in isolation, right?
No, absolutely not. That's critical. They work together. For pretty much any decision, any initiative, you should be thinking about all 7. Applying one often supports or enables another.
They reinforce each other, so maybe you don't apply every single aspect of every principle every single time, but you should at least consider them, like a mental checklist.
Exactly. They're guidance, not rigid, prescriptive rules. Let's maybe dig into each one a bit more, starting with number 1, which ties right back to our core concept, focus on value.
Makes sense. It's number 1. Everything the organization does, every task, project, service, it has to link back somehow to value for someone. Customer, user, the organization itself.
And if you can't articulate who benefits and how they benefit, you really have to question why that activity is happening at all.
It forces that deep understanding we talked about. Who are the stakeholders? What do they actually need and perceive as valuable? And remembering that can shift.
So it's not just about the tech deliverable. It's about the outcome, the experience. Understanding that customer experience involves both objective metrics, like uptime, and also their subjective perception. How do they feel using the service?
So practically, this means maybe aligning projects explicitly with business outcomes. Or when someone requests something new, asking why? What outcome are you trying to achieve?
Exactly, making sure there's a real, valuable purpose behind the work. The sources share a good example, a service desk team. They used to produce this massive weekly report for executives. It took a lot of effort.
Okay.
But when someone finally applied focus on value and asked, why are we doing this, who uses it, turned out nobody was reading it.
Oh, wow. Complete waste of effort.
Total waste. So they stopped. They talked to the executives, found out what metrics they actually cared about, designed a much simpler, focused report, and delivered it monthly. They turned a zero-value task into a high-value one just by focusing on stakeholder needs.
So focus on value is step 1. Define it, keep checking you're heading towards it, and confirm it was delivered. It's the starting point for everything else.
Then comes principle 2. Start where you are. This one feels very practical, very down to earth.
Resisting that urge to just tear everything down and start over.
Precisely. The rip and replace temptation. This principle says, hold on. Before you change anything, take a really good objective look at what you have now. What processes, tools, services, data, even people's skills and knowledge are already in place. What's actually working okay.
So investigate before you try to innovate. Look at the docs, check the metrics, but also, crucially, talk to the people doing the work.
Yes. You might find parts of a solution already exist, or lessons learned from previous attempts, maybe even in a different department. Leverage what's good.
The benefits seem obvious. You preserve value that's already there. You save time and money by not reinventing the wheel.
And you probably reduce risk, right? Because you're building on something known, not just leaping into the complete unknown.
The example given is an IT director needing to improve incident management, instead of just hiring consultants for a brand new process.
She started by digging into the current state, reviewed their existing process flows, their categories, talked extensively with the service desk staff about what worked and what didn't, looked at the actual incident data.
And found
The core process wasn't terrible, but certain parts were definitely outdated or causing issues. So she focused on refining those specific areas, maybe adding some reporting fields they needed. She built on the existing strengths rather than throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Makes sense. Start where you are, understand the present, respect the past, and then make targeted incremental improvements unless there's a really strong case for a total overhaul. Saves a lot of churn.
And that flows really nicely into principle number 3. Progress iteratively with feedback.
So don't try to boil the ocean. Break it down.
Exactly. Don't try to do everything in one massive go. Break the work into smaller, manageable chunks or iterations.
Sounds very agile.
It aligns perfectly with agile and lean thinking. Yeah. Continuous improvement. You deliver something small, achieve a mini outcome, get it out there, learn from it.
And then use that learning to make the next chunk better.
Right. The big advantage is risk reduction. If you make a mistake or assumptions are wrong in one small iteration, it's relatively easy and low cost to correct course.
Whereas a massive Big Bang failure that can be catastrophic.
And the second part of the principle's name is key, with feedback. It's not just about iterating, it's about learning from each cycle. After each iteration, you must get input from users, from stakeholders.
You'd actually use that feedback.
Yes. Use it to shape the next iteration. That's how you ensure you stay aligned with what people actually need and value.
The example used is implementing a new ITSM tool instead of a single go-live date for the entire organization.
Risky. Instead, they rolled it out first only to the internal IT help desk.
Okay, a pilot group.
Yeah. That group used it in their real work, found bugs, identified workflow problems, pointed out things that weren't intuitive. The project team gathered all that feedback.
And fixed things. Tuned it.
Exactly. They fine-tuned the configuration, maybe tweaked some processes, provided more targeted training. Then, armed with those lessons, they rolled it out to the next group, say the HR service team.
And repeated the process.
Kept repeating that cycle. Learn, adapt, roll out, get feedback. By the time it reached the whole organization, it was much more robust and user-friendly because of all those feedback loops.
So, progress iteratively with feedback means delivering value sooner, learning faster, and staying connected to stakeholder needs through that constant input. Builds confidence, too, with those quick wins.
Definitely. Okay, principle 4, collaborate and promote visibility. This feels so crucial in today's complex, often siloed organization.
Breaking down those walls and making sure people are talking to each other and can see what's going on.
Pretty much. Collaboration is about getting the right people involved at the right times. Not just IT talking to IT, but IT talking with the business, with users, security, suppliers, finance, whoever has a stake or relevant knowledge.
Because tapping into that collective wisdom leads to better results, more relevant solutions.
Absolutely. And it builds buy-in. If you work in isolation and then spring something on people, you often face resistance or find out you missed critical requirements.
Makes sense. And the visibility part.
That's about transparency. Making sure information about the work plans, progress, issues, decisions, results is accessible to everyone who needs it. This could be through shared dashboards, regular updates, open documentation, project tracking tools.
Why is that so important?
It builds trust. When people can see what's happening, they feel more involved and confident. It also helps spot problems early, like potential bottlenecks or situations where different teams might be unknowingly working on the same thing or, worse, at cross purposes.
Keeps everyone aligned.
The example describes a business unit requesting a change to a mobile app instead of just the app dev team doing it.
They brought others in.
Yeah, they formed a working group. It included the app team, sure, but also folks from infrastructure because the app ran on shared systems. And representatives from other business units who use that same infrastructure, even someone focused on customer experience.
And they made the work visible.
Used a shared online project board where everyone could see tasks, progress, dependencies. Because of that collaboration and visibility, they could schedule the change to minimize disruption across the board. They even spotted a chance to bundle in some improvements that benefited other departments using the same platform.
So better outcome, less disruption, more trust.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Collaboration harnesses knowledge and gains support. Visibility keeps everyone aligned and avoids nasty surprises. Nothing should happen in a vacuum.
Okay, principle 5. Think and work holistically. This sounds like seeing the big picture.
It is. It's the recognition that no service, no component, no process, no team exists in isolation. Everything is interconnected. You have to consider the service or system end to end.
So if you tweak one part,
it will have effects elsewhere, ripple effects. You need to step back and consider the whole system. The sources suggest using ITIL's 4 dimensions of service management as a kind of mental checklist here.
Remind me of those.
Organizations and people, information and technology, partners and suppliers, and value streams and processes. For any significant change or initiative, you should ask, How did this impact each of these dimensions?
So if I'm putting in new monitoring software, information technology, I also need to think about who needs training, people, how it changes our incident processes, and maybe our contract with the software vendor, partner suppliers.
Precisely. If you just focus narrowly on the tech installation, you might completely miss the human element, or break a process, or overlook a supplier dependency. Thinking holistically prevents you from optimizing one small part at the expense of the overall service value.
Requires systems thinking, really, understanding the interdependencies.
The example is a bank implementing multi-factor authentication, MFA, for its online banking. A narrow, non-holistic view would just be about installing the MFA tech.
Right. Get the software working.
But a holistic approach asks much broader questions. People. How will customers react? What training do support staff need? Technology. Is it compatible with all our platforms? How does it integrate? Partners. What about the reliability of the SMS provider sending the codes? Any third-party developers involved? Processes. How does this change the account recovery process? What about new customer onboarding? Support procedures.
Wow. Okay. Thinking through all that.
Leads to a much smoother implementation. They can achieve the security goal without wrecking the customer experience or causing chaos for internal operations. They deliver both security value and usability value by considering the whole system.
So always look at the wider context. A change here ripples out there. Success means considering all the moving parts.
Which often needs collaboration and visibility, by the way. See how they link?
Yeah, I do. All right, principle 6. Keep it simple and practical. This one sounds appealing. Fight complexity.
Yes. Always look for the simplest path that achieves the necessary outcome. Use the minimum number of steps, the minimum number of features, the minimum complexity required.
Avoid the temptation to over-engineer things.
Exactly. Before adding anything, a step in a process, a field on a form, a feature in software, ask, is this genuinely adding value? Is it absolutely necessary?
Because simplicity usually means efficiency, right?
Yeah.
Easier to understand, easier to do, easier to maintain, easier to automate later.
And less prone to errors, delays, and costs. Complexity is often where things go wrong. So critically evaluate every element. If it doesn't contribute value directly linking back to Principle 1, seriously consider removing it or finding a simpler alternative.
It also suggests prioritizing practicality over some theoretical perfection.
Definitely. A simple, workable solution that gets implemented and used is infinite.
And you mentioned automation. This principle advises simplifying before you automate.
Yes. Don't pave the cow path. Simplify the process first, then consider automating the streamlined version.
The example is about employee onboarding, moving from, say, stacks of paper forms
Into a single, streamlined digital process. They designed one main online form but kept it short, only asking for absolutely essential info up front.
practical.
They collaborated with HR, IT, facilities behind the scenes to ensure everyone got what they needed, but without cluttering the initial form for the new hire. Workflows kicked off automatically in the background.
So the new hire has a simple experience, even if there's complexity managed elsewhere.
Exactly. The result, fewer steps to the human, less data entry, faster provisioning, better experience. The team guiding principle was constantly asking, can we make this simpler? Is this step truly adding value?
It's so easy for complexity to creep in over time. This is a good reminder to constantly prune and simplify.
Which leads us right into the 7th and final principle, optimize and automate.
Okay, now we get to automation. But it's last for a reason.
Critically important reason. Optimize first, then automate.
Explain that sequence.
Optimize means taking an existing process, service, workflow, whatever it is, and making it as effective and efficient as possible before you even think about automating it. Analyze it, find the bottlenecks, eliminate waste, streamline the steps, get it working well manually or with minimal tech.
Because if you automate a bad process,
You just get a bad process that runs faster. You automate the inefficiency, the waste. You miss the opportunity to actually improve the underlying way of working.
so optimize first, then automate.
Then you apply technology to perform those optimized tasks with minimal human intervention. Automation is great for speed, consistency, reducing errors, scaling.
And freeing up people.
Yes, freeing up humans from repetitive, mundane tasks so they can focus on more complex, creative, value-adding work where their judgment and skills are truly needed.
What should we consider when automating?
Make sure you have a clear purpose reducing time, cost, errors. Is it tied to service value? Did you optimize first? What's the cost benefit? And importantly, where does human intervention still add value? Don't automate everything just because you can. Keep humans in the loop for judgment calls, exceptions, relationship building, and monitor the automation. Is it still effective? Does the underlying process need re-optimizing?
The example is automatic help desk ticket routing. What did they do first?
They didn't just buy a tool. First, they optimized their ticket categorization. They refined the categories, trained users and support staff on how to use them properly. They tweaked the manual triage process.
Got the foundation right.
Then, they implemented automation rules based on those improved categories. Routine, well-defined tickets got routed automatically to the right specialist team.
Result.
Faster resolution for common issues. Tier 1 staff weren't bogged down in simple routing. They could focus on diagnosing the tricky stuff. Better service, better use of people's time, but only because they optimized before they automated.
Optimize for effectiveness, automate for efficiency. Got it.
So those are the 7 principles.
We've covered the core concept of value co-created, utility plus warranty, stakeholders view, and these 7 guiding principles that act as a compass.
And remember, the real magic isn't just knowing the list. It's applying them, using them actively to think about your work, guide your decisions, steer towards value.
And that checklist idea seems useful. For any project, any problem, just quickly run through the 7. Focus on value, start where you are. Progress iteratively. Collaborate visibility. Holistic view. Keep it simple. Optimize, automate.
Exactly. Asking those questions systematically can really highlight blind spots or opportunities. Oh, wait, we haven't actually talked to the finance team about this. Or, this step seems overly complicated. Can we simplify it?
And we saw how they connect. Thinking holistically needs collaboration. Focusing on value drives simplification. Iterating provides feedback.
They really do reinforce each other. The university student portal example in the sources really brought that home. They consciously used all 7 principles.
Right. Focused on value for students by involving them.
Started where they were by reusing existing FAQs and systems.
Progressed iteratively with a basic version first, gathering feedback.
Collaborated widely with students, faculty, IT teams, used visible tracking.
Thought holistically about the portal's place in the overall student journey.
Kept it simple with a clean interface, prioritizing core features, and optimized workflows behind the scenes before automating ticket routing.
And that integrated approach led to a successful outcome that actually met needs effectively and efficiently.
It shows these principles aren't just theory. They are a practical framework for delivering better services. And remember, they apply in all circumstances, not just huge projects, but small, everyday decisions too.
Making them part of the team's language, maybe. Referencing them in meetings.
That can be really powerful for building a culture where people instinctively think about value, simplicity, collaboration, and the other principles.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive, ITIL-4 is grounded in value co-created, needing utility and warranty seen through the stakeholders' eyes.
And the 7 guiding principles are your essential, interconnected toolkit for navigating service management, making sound decisions, and driving improvement, always pointing back towards that value.
They're not just abstract concepts. They're practical tools to help you, the listener, handle the challenges and opportunities you face every day. By embedding that value focus and using these principles, you really can improve how services are delivered.
So here's a final thought to take away. Thinking about how these principles interact and thinking about your own specific work environment. Which one principle feels like the biggest hurdle for you or your team to apply consistently right now, and why?
And then applying the principles themselves, especially maybe progress iteratively and keep it simple. What's the absolute smallest, most practical first step you could take, maybe even today or this week, just to nudge things forward a tiny bit on that challenging principle?
Just something to reflect on as you put these ideas into practice.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.